Morning, everybody. It's Wild Man Z here for my, I believe this is my 11th installment of my 2022 book tour. Going through my library. It's actually feels like winter outside. It's about 20 degrees here in New York. It's about how it should feel. I love when people say, "Oh, it's so cold." I'm like, it used to be really cold. The people that don't believe in climate change should just go outside a little bit more. Here's a really cool book of nonfiction, "The Song of the Dodo" by David Quayman. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a book on island biogeography. The subtitle is "Island Biogeography in the Age of Extinction." It deals with animals like the dodo bird and other animals that are found exclusively on small islands and factors that lead them to go to extinction or become extremely rare. It also includes the case of humans. They examine, for example, the Tasmanian Aborigines, which were arguably driven to extinction by the behavior of the Europeans when they went there. It's a good book. Here's a book I just picked up at at a bookstore in Vermont. It's the Birds of South Africa, which or Southern Africa, excuse me, and it's just really cool color plates of birds. I probably will never go to South Africa. It look like some jacanas or sandpipers of some sort, plovers. These are definitely kingfishers. Here in the U.S., we're kind of limited on the kingfishers. We only have two species. The one we have locally is the belted kingfisher. Whenever I see a bird book that's like a field guide or something, I pick it up just to look at the birds. I know you can see them on the internet, but I just like having the books. Speaking of that, I was in Iowa for about 6 months, back around 2009ish, when they had the flood of the Iowa River. And I know it was very different geography than where I was at previously. I was in Vermont. I was doing a postdoctoral research little gig at Iowa. Iowa's mostly converted to farmland. It's like I think one of the most or the most converted states to farmland. But you have little patches of woods, and you'll see birds. Like I think both of these have a bluebird on the cover. Bluebirds are quite common there, so you'll get birds more associated with farmlands and fields as opposed to deciduous forests. So it's kind of cool. Anywhere I go, if there's a field guide to the animals there, I always pick it up. Here's a collected edition of Borges's work, which I've got several collected editions, so there's a lot of overlap. I think I have all his works at this point in time, at least all his stories. He might have written some essays that I haven't read, but I love Borges. It's he's a surrealist, magic realist, and a boom writer, and he's really cool. Him and Gabriel Garcia Marquez are really the only two I've ever read extensively. Here's a really cool book of nonfiction. If you're into birds, The Origin and Evolution of Birds by Alan Feducia. I believe he's at UNC, University of North Carolina. I might be wrong about that. This book, I remember, starts off, he's sort of a structural biologist in the sense of he looks at anatomical features, and I think his specialty was the spherynx. And I think those are Hoatzins on the cover. They're really cool birds. But he'll look at features like certain birds are called end-to-end ornithine birds. They have like opposite their feet are opposite of the way they should be and so forth. They curve under when they perch, and that's like an ancient stock. So he uses structural features, and he starts off with this really cool diatribe. This was written in the 90s when the methods of molecular biology, analyzing the DNA and so forth as a method of speciation and finding relationships between birds was becoming prevalent. Now I think that is the most prevalent way. And so, for example, like now we would consider by a genetic analysis like black and turkey vultures, New World vultures are actually more closely related to storks than birds of prey and the Old World vultures. So, but they look like vultures. They look like Old World vultures. And so that's a form of an argument which this guy really hops on in the beginning, and he's in so many words tells these DNA guys to go back to the lab, stay away from my birds. And it was just really cool to see how I disagree with that. I'm a chemist, so of course I kind of oriented towards the molecular bio interpretation of things. But yeah, I just thought it was great how much love this guy had for his science and how he was sticking to his guns no matter what. Here's a controversial book. I probably shouldn't even be showing it on here. Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses. This was the third book I read by Salman Rushdie. I like it. It's magic realism again. It deals with two gentlemen who were in a terrorist attack on an airplane, and that both are transformed into biblical or Quranic figures. One is Gabriel, the other is Satan himself. And they go through a whole series of events that go through time and space. Some of them are trifling, like they might show up at the deathbed of some elderly woman who did nothing spectacular in her life and be there for her, or they might be at there at the moment when Muhammad goes to the cave and becomes informed by the angel of the rules of Islam, which I think is that's what got him the fatwa. Really talented writer. As I said in other videos, a couple things that bother. One of the things that really bothers me about him is I guess he's got the skill set, Salman Rushdie, where he can use English any old way he wants. I think this is the book that has the sentence "okay, okay," period. I'm like, all right. But it was cool. He writes poetically. He tries to establish a beat, and I don't really understand poetry, so when I read something like that, it kind of throws me. And I think he was trying to throw you, but it's a really great book. And I was reading this one time in the laundromat in Vermont. We had the Vermont refugee settlement program with a lot of people from North Africa who were Islamic, and they came in. And I remember one Islamic gentleman was like his wife had the kerchief on her head, I forgot what, hijab on her head, and he stared at me. He saw me reading this book. But, I'm in America. I'm going to read what I want. And if you don't like it, deal with it. Best American Short Stories, back when they were good and they weren't so whiny. 2010. Let's see who we got in here. Anybody good? Let's see here. I have a whole bunch of check marks. I pretty much read all these stories. Oh, here's a good one. Brendan Matthews. My last attempt to explain what happened to explain to you what happened to the Lion Tamer with the Lion Tamer from the Cincinnati Review. That's a really, really, really good story. Another one that's really good is Marlon Barton's Into Silence. It's about a deaf young girl living with her mother and a mysterious stranger who comes to the house one day to live with them, to be a boarder. It's really good. They were writing some good stories back then. Here's another one that's really good. Sherman Alexie is a Native American gentleman. I don't know what group of people he's from, but he's, I think, a Pacific Northwest Native American. And he writes really cool stories about indigenous people in the modern age, living on reservations and primarily in poverty and displacement that they have in our culture, which is extremely unfortunate. But they're not bleeding heart. They're not whiny stories. They're cool stories. They're like real stories of a real guy who grew up on a reservation with a little touch of magic reality in there too. He incorporates a little bit of dream, vision, and so forth. And it gives it a very distinct feel, and it's cool. And he's got some white guys in there too, and they're funny, and I like the stories. I thought they were fantastic. I want to read more of his collections. Here's something that's a comic book, but I'm going to show what the hell was in my stack. I considered it a book at the time. I put it on my bookshelf. This is the Avengers versus the JLA and the Avengers. They meet, they fight, like classic Dumas type of mechanism, and then they team up. And I'm trying to think who formed the team up. I think it was Cap and Batman were fighting, and they realized, hey, same side type of thing. Like, this is some kind of trick. We're heroes here. And it's really cool. It's all Kurt Busiek and George Perez, so it's got to be really good if you're a comic book fan. And if you're not, you can click off the video because this is the last the book, arguably. But that was a great one, and I keep it on my bookshelf because it's oversized, and who wants to hide that beautiful thing? The artwork. Let's just got a few seconds here. Let's see if I can just whip out some art. Look at this cover. Got all the Marvel and DC heroes on there. It's really cool. So that's classic George Perez. So we'll leave on that image. Hopefully they'll put it up too as my little screenshot there. That's the kind of stuff you want to see in comic books, not Superman getting sodomized like they're doing now in some of the comics. So the good stuff. So on that note, I'm out of here, and take care. Have a good day.